This conference will now be recorded.
Am I getting audio?
You are, yeah, we can hear you. Great to have you.
You got my video or just audio?
Just audio.
Just audio right now.
Okay, here we go. I have my computer set up to movie making mode. Here, y'all go ahead. I got your screen on this side.
Well, you know, as we get started, I would love to invite everybody to find the chat icon and let us know that you're here. If you will, please share your name, company, and role as we greet one another and kind of get together today for this very quick power session on capabilities for success. Thank you for joining us for this 30-minute power session of a 4-part June series called Capabilities for Success. South Carolina ATD has dedicated this series to exploring the capabilities that define the standard of excellence in talent development. These capabilities capture what talent development professionals most need to know now and in the future. You may have met our guest contributor last week, but I'm going to go ahead and share some information about her for any new attendees today. Dawn Mahoney is a talent development professional who is passionate about developing people through better learning content, better learning strategy, and better dialogue. As a certified professional in talent development, CPTD, Dawn has extensive experience in the ATD world. She's not only served as a leader of her local ATD chapter in Wisconsin, but has held many roles with ATD at the national level as well. Dawn is the author of Lean Learning Using the ATD Model, and she's contributed to various ATD blog posts and several books. In 2015, Dawn founded Learning in the White Space. It's a boutique consultancy devoted to planning a learning strategy and bringing it to life. So I would encourage you to find Dawn on LinkedIn, Dawn Mahoney, and connect with her, make her part of your network. She's such a great person to work with. I'll be serving as the local contributor today. My name is Jessica Cabrera, and I'm the president of the South Carolina ATD chapter. It is a great opportunity to serve this chapter, all of its members, and I'm really excited about the topic for today. In the series, we're going to be discussing what practitioners need to know to develop themselves, others, and their organizations. So as you may have seen, this is the ATD's talent development capability model. We're going to use this as our blueprint for the discussion throughout the month. And in addition to learning about the leading model for the industry for talent development, today we will reflect on our own professional development and consider areas for growth and advancement for your career. So this capability model demonstrates the need for talent development professionals to blend knowledge and skills across all 3 of the domains that you see here in order to be most effective in their careers. Within the 3 domains that you see, there are a total of 23 capabilities that identify the specific knowledge and skills that talent development professionals must harness in order to have maximum impact. Now, last week, we really took a deep dive, as deep as you can go in a 30-minute power session, into the personal capabilities for success, so the green domain. The link to this session is available on our members only page, and I will also send it in the chat during this session. As we shared last week, these are the foundational capabilities for all business professionals to be successful in their career. They're not necessarily specific to talent development per se, but they are foundational for business professionals to be successful, and they kind of undergird what we're going to delve into today. And today we're going to break into developing professional capability. So this domain is the second domain that we're exploring in this series. Talent development professionals must be effective in their roles of creating the processes, systems, and frameworks to foster learning, maximize performance, and develop the capacity and potential of employees. So there are 8 capabilities in this domain, and these capabilities include core professional skills and necessary specialized skills for identifying, developing, and delivering effective learning solutions. Now, if you just take a look at the 8 professional capabilities in this domain, you will kind of get a feel for where we're headed with this, the transition between personal capabilities in that green domain to professional capabilities, which are now in this blue domain that we're going to dig into for the next few minutes. So of course, as we get started, we have a couple of questions to ask you. We'd like for you to find the chat on your screen, and we're going to have just a brief little discussion here. If you will pull that up, our first question is actually a yes or no question. So we're just going to be real brief in our responses, yes or no. Have you thought about what your career growth will look like in the next 5 years? If you will go ahead and in the chat, let us know, have you thought about what your career growth will look like over the next 5 years? And be honest, if this is something that's not really on your mind, if you're kind of in the moment right now, say no. And if you have a real clear path of what your growth is going to look like or where you hope to be in 5 years, then say yes. So John, what are we seeing in the chat here? What kind of responses are we getting in?
It looks like everybody has thought about the trajectory of their career over the next 5 years, months, days, weeks, and years. And I think good for us, because the industry doesn't stay static, so neither should we, right?
That's awesome. So it sounds like, and especially if you're attending a session like this today, it's probably because you're somewhat goal oriented, right?
Right.
So that's really great that you guys are thinking about this. So now we want you to type into the chat, what is holding you back from professional growth? What is holding you back from professional growth? Go ahead and give us kind of knee-jerk response to this question.
We only have one no in our previous question. Derek will have to share more with us later on. Fear of failure, investment of time. So we have a few responses. Fear of failure, I think, is a big one to own out loud for ourselves, and it's so valid. I live in that headspace too a lot. But time and work-life balance seem to be the big ones. It's timely conversation, though, to have today, speaking of time, and that we're going to talk just briefly and introduce you to a great roadmap for success, which is exactly the thing we should be doing.
Exactly. So, it seems like we have a group of people here who are very goal oriented and thinking about where they're headed in their career, or maybe where they would like to be in their career, but have some limitations, especially with time or the barriers that they feel like maybe are even out of their control with regard to their professional growth. What do you think, Don, when it comes to professional growth, whether we are subjected to our circumstances, or is that more in our control?
It's always in our control, whether it feels that way or not. I happened to see one of the comments in here too was lack of funds to pay for professional certifications, which is a whole other show, so to speak, about the efficacy of professional certifications or and whether they play in. But we're always in charge of us, right? At the end of the day, that's the only thing we are in charge of. So I would say that we need to, just like the competency model became the capability model, for those of you that have been around for a few years have known that we had a competency model previously. The industry changes. Sometimes we just change the names of things going forward and they look largely the same, but also the industry changes. We're working with fewer staff people. We're wearing multiple hats. Like it used to be, there would be an instructional designer and developers. Often those two are morphed into one job, usually at the lesser pay scale has been my experience. But so we need to own developing ourselves in whatever way and shape and form that we can manage. And that would be a really good way to describe my career, actually. Reading everything I can get my hands on. That TD magazine that comes every month is full of snippets and bite-sized and easily consumable information that gives you the hunger for learning more about X, Y, and Z. But we're always in charge, aren't we? At the end of
That's
the day.
right. And I'm glad you brought that up about the competency model and the capability model. You know, the last session in this series on the 26th will be really about the model itself and how talent development professionals can use some of the tools and resources available through ATD's model in order to pursue advancement in their career. But for the sake of today, we don't want to go into these 8 professional capabilities for success without mentioning that this is part of ATD's new capability model. And the competency model, if you've been in the ATD world for a while, is the model that has been adopted since 2013. And, you know, really what we see in this capability model is especially in particular in this professional domain that we're looking at today, are the same core elements that existed in the competency model and some of those newer specialized skills that are really important for a well-rounded professional, talent development professional today. So just wanted to throw that out there. We'll be going more into the model in 2 weeks, but as a whole. But just in case you're wondering the difference between the competency and the capability, in this domain in particular, there are a lot of similarities, but they may have new, fresh labels, or they may be categorized slightly differently, but the core elements are the same. So, Dawn, why don't you share your thoughts with us on these 8 capabilities and their relevance to success in talent development right now before we go into a little activity with the attendees?
Absolutely, I'd love to. I like how they built this like it's pie, sections of pizza or pie, and they're all even though our careers probably sometimes they're bigger and smaller. It isn't all even sections, but I like the visualness of this from that standpoint. And you might be thinking in your present role, well, I only facilitate training classes and I don't need, and somebody else does the instructional designs, and I don't have any team members, so I don't need coaching. The reality is your career is not static, and so at any point in the future, you may not know today that you're going to change venue, but through your choice or other people's choice, I can raise my hand and tell all about that. You may find yourself at another organization, and in which you may need to have had exposure to one or more of these other elements. I think about too, you might not know that you're going to have a major software upgrade and you'll be hiring a vendor team to help you through that process. That's got a whole lot of planning and project management associated, but also coaching vendors through how to work with your organization, the culture, etc. So each of these items, whether they are your primary area of specialty in your present role, is not so important as it is to pay attention to these other areas that will set you up for success. And I have a really brief story that's actually a longer story, but I worked for the same woman for over 11 years, and she came from the finance world. She was the director over training and development for all of us. We loved her. But because she didn't have any of the background in the work we did and do, it was difficult to have conversations with her about design, instructional strategy. Had she been given this model to look at, she could have been even a better help to us and a better advocate for training and development for our organization. So the fact that they've changed it from competencies to capabilities means you have opportunity, I think, is the best way to look at it. And it's active, not passive. It's no longer items on a job description. These are things that whether we formally say we do or don't do, we have access to and we're capable of Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I was also just reflecting as you were talking about the changes that we've gone through even during COVID-19. I'm doing things today that I was not doing 5 months ago. And not only that, but I'm definitely doing things today that I wasn't doing 5 or 6 years ago. And I really appreciate just that perspective for talent development professionals to really think globally or holistically about their involvement in talent development as a profession, not necessarily only the channel or the pipeline that you're currently in this moment, but really how to expand yourself professionally across all of these domains and capabilities to be able to be a successful, marketable talent development professional. So yeah, great thoughts on that. Now I'm going to turn on the drawing tools for everyone so that we can do a little activity here together. If you guys will find the drawing tools on your screen, and you should be able to find either, most likely the pen is the easiest thing to use. And we'd like for you to put a mark on the capability in this domain that you feel strong in. And you can put a mark on more than one. So go to the drawing tools, select the pen, and then you can put like a check mark, for example, on the area where you feel like you are strong.
Fun to watch.
And if you have multiple areas of strength or expertise, feel free to check more than one capability.
There was a day when I would have had to explain what knowledge management is. I think it's so interesting that people are pointing to that as an area of strength. It shows that our industry has changed and grown.
That's a great point. And also folks coming from outside of the industry and becoming a part of this industry as part of their own professional path.
I love this activity. It's fun.
We still have a few marks coming, so that's great. I can see a few people have maybe arrived to the scene with their pen.
And I love the pink and purple. It looks like training delivery still is probably the biggest one, which isn't a surprise.
If we were all on video, I would ask for a raise of hands on who would not have put technology application 4 months ago and then put it today. Because I feel like many of us have been thrusted into that. I got a graduate certificate in teaching with technology and distance learning. And for 5 years after I graduated, I did not really use that knowledge very much. I only used it kind of in volunteer areas and whatnot. And since COVID, suddenly all of the things that I have learned and applied getting that graduate certificate have become extremely relevant in my day-to-day life, which is a great example of taking a path to expand your horizons. The reason I chose that graduate certificate was because it was an area I didn't understand very well. And then I ended up, it ended up really serving me well during a time like this. Well, this is really interesting. Thanks everyone for participating and also just self-reflecting on where are the areas that I feel really strong from this domain. Now we're going to erase these drawings and we will do the next one, same type of mark, just put a check mark. Put a mark where you feel you have the opportunity for growth. So identify the ones where you feel like, you know, if I'm going to pursue some professional growth in the near future, I'm going to pick these areas. And mark the areas that you feel you would really like to grow in at this point of time in your career.
when the competency model was new, way back in early in 2002, 3, technology application was checked more than it is right now, because as trainers, we didn't often have to interface with tools the way we do today. But it's still something we need to always grow and sharpen the proverbial saw. It seems like tools change so quickly. Evaluating impact, good.
Very good. Well, fortunately, we're a part of an organization that really focuses on all of these areas. And with this capabilities model and this, in particular, this professional capabilities domain, ATD aligns all of our learning events to one of the 23 capabilities. So as you attend learning events over time with ATD, you are being exposed to different domains and different capabilities within these domains that are kind of checking those boxes so that we as an organization are being sure to present you with comprehensive variety when it comes to our content, so that you can be exposed to content that is healthy and helpful in your own professional growth and understanding. So at this time, we're going to actually just take a moment to get out of the presentation and come to, if you're on video, or if maybe you just see Dawn and I and a few others of us. And as you know, this is a power session. So we are, it's very quick, but we want to provide you with some resources and have a little bit of discussion about the questions that you have regarding this. And as you probably saw, whenever we sent out the information with this link, we're providing an extra 15 minutes for anyone who does have the time afterwards to talk about this in more depth. So as we look at what is next, just 1 second. Okay. I'm going to put some links in the chat for you on articles that are associated with the professional capabilities domain. That way, if there is an area where you would like to learn a little bit more, you can explore that a little bit further. Next week, we're going to cover the organizational capabilities, and then on the 26th, we'll cover the model as a whole and how you can do a self-assessment and what opportunities you have to pursue growth in these areas. So as I include those links for you in the chat in just a moment, I'll just kind of turn to Dawn real quick for any last minute reflections and or responses to questions that you may want to send in the chat. And we'll wrap up our quick power session, which is an introduction to this professional capabilities domain. And we'll stay on the line for another 15 minutes for you to discuss this topic with us further if you want to join our little after party.
After party, woo, woo. My final thought, just continuing from earlier, we own our careers, no one else does. And the day that I figured that out and didn't let not having a budget for attending things from my employer and so forth, my decisioning became different, and I started to see possibilities for more opportunity for learning about X, and took ownership for bringing things to my local chapter that made it affordable for me, and started really networking with people that had the skills and capabilities that I needed to know more about. So I want to leave you with the thought today that you own your career, and you have my permission to go forth and be even more excellent than you are.
All right, I'm putting into the chat right now a series of links for you. And for anyone who needs to log off quickly, you can copy and paste this. You can copy it and paste it into a Word document even for yourself. We have an article on technology application, knowledge management, coaching, delivering and facilitation, learning sciences, and we will continue to provide additional resources throughout the series. Also, for anyone who needs to log off at this time, I want to remind you that we're going to do a members only game night on the 16th at 7 p.m. So be on the lookout for that as well. So now let's open up our mics and let's talk some for our after party about the questions and any conversation topics you have regarding the professional capabilities domain.
Bye, everybody that has to leave. Bye-bye. Thanks for being here. Anybody got any questions? Hit us. Hit us hard.
I don't have any questions, but I'm really excited about delving in even deeper with the capabilities model and all the specific capabilities for success with all of them. So I'm looking forward to that very much so.
Good for you. Good for you. We can always learn
I
something,
agree.
right? Sorry, Bobby.
No, I'm saying I agree. I've actually, I think a lot of us have used this time to think about goals and, the career. So we have some downtime. I've been working on, I don't know if you've heard of a website, and I'll be glad to share it. It's called 100 Life Goals. It's a neat way to approach. It's kind of like a Stephen Covey kind of approach. What are your big rocks? But I'm applying it to learning and performance as well. So things like, what am I working on, like a PMP or, either a certification with SHRM, one of those kind of things. So I really like the idea of digging into your own career. And I love that when you talked about you're in charge of your career. And when I advise staff, I do the same thing. I tell them that you're working for Dawn Mahoney Incorporated. You just happen to be doing business at this location. So tend to your career. And so it's well received. Thank you.
I've learned that back in the day, I didn't know I was in charge, and I was waiting for people to give me a golden ticket. And things became different when I started taking the proactive approach. And I like the word capability. We don't have to be perfect at it to be able to participate. And that's what I like about them changing the word from competency, which means I have to be the master of it, to I know enough about this to be able to apply it in my work. I think is a great way to look at the change in wording. What other questions? Sorry.
And I did just throw it back up on there so that you guys could see it, see it again. But I honestly, just personally, and with working with so many people within the ATD family, it is so obvious to me that we really do have to think differently as talent development professionals today. We are going to be limiting ourselves tremendously if we stay on one narrow path, and if we don't have our career and our profession in a very holistic way. And I mean, most of us that are involved in this career are are lifelong learners. And for me, it just excites me how much there is out there to learn and to grow, not just for professional growth, but really for the growth of my own understanding of things. And maybe if I learn more about something, that will give me the ability to help someone else in a greater capacity along the way. So I'm kind of like you, Marilyn. I look at this and I think about how excited I am to personally reflect on areas where I can grow. And I hope that that's really the whole point of this series, and just popping online really quickly to take a look at it is to then walk away and think about, you know what, there are some areas where I can grow professionally at this point in time. And of course, if you are a part of the ATD family, then you have so many resources here that are helping you do that. Some of the articles I shared today are just the tip of the iceberg, and each week we're going to be sharing more and more, and on the last week we'll be showing you online tools. So just excited about the process.
I'm curious to know if it was a surprise to anybody that learning sciences is an element, and also coaching, because I would suspect that if I would look back in my career, the people I worked with that were in this role but didn't necessarily get there on the same path I did. In other words, they knew enough to be dangerous and got plunked there. Learning sciences wouldn't have been something of interest, nor coaching, but it's both of them to me are such vital aspects. First of all, I can read about brain research all day and be fascinated. But I don't know what they were previously called in the former competency model, but I'd be interested to know if whether you think it was surprising or you were surprised to know they were added.
Yeah, does anybody have any thoughts on that? Feel free to pop into the chat if there's anything here, but I feel like I personally was surprised on learning sciences as a professional capability, because we often think of that as being very cerebral and thinking of the science of learning in a way that, okay, we'll let the professors do that, and then we'll read the article about it. And to suggest that we as practitioners or leaders in talent development need to be informed in the learning sciences and have a level of expertise in that is something that definitely challenges me. I'm kind of like you. I can be nerdy about it, but I don't necessarily take ownership of it. You know, I will enjoy it, but I don't take ownership of that knowledge. And so it challenges me to think in that way for sure.
I know when I went to a local ATD event, I hadn't been a member very long in at this level in my career, very long at that point. And the whole thing was about the work of Daniel Goleman. And that was life-changing for me, because it took this thing I was doing and loving, working with Mr. Sketch markers in the classroom and the work there to, there is actually more to this. And yes, that's a great, she reaches right over and gets brain rules. I had no idea that this was an aspect of the work I was doing, but it informed me in such a way that I realized why school was difficult for me, and learning certain topics in school were difficult. And it opened up a whole new world to me. So I was very rewarded that they're actually making this an actual thing here. Adult learning.
Yeah, and I see that Belinda is on the line, and she had she's saying here that she entered through learning sciences. Belinda, did you want to share anything?
Yes, so can you hear me?
Yep, you're real
We
soft
can.
though.
Okay, all right. I don't know if I have my webcam on or off. New computer.
Off. Yeah.
So quick history is I started out in the world of counseling and through recreation therapy, etc., and went into coaching through Vanderbilt's research. And at that time, I realized no matter who I'm talking to, people or anything, whether it's counseling, training, the residents and people who came in, my team members, it came down to behavior and people, because and my whole niche into this was understanding why it is that we do what we do, think what we think, how we perceive our world, our information, and that whole processing. And that's what got me excited back in the 90s, before it was even cool to be a nerd in that world, and just pretty much summarized everything into the process of behaviors. What is it we're doing? Why do we do it that way? And what are the things after training and development and these conversations can we do to help that information stick?
The whole thing about motivation, right?
Yeah, it's motivation. And sometimes it's more than motivation. So not to get too preachy, but when I had my own business at one point in time, but if we can get people to just do the right thing without having a conversation, without dealing with motivation. So if you want me to go through the right exit door instead of the left, black out the left, put a sign on it, and open the other door. I'm going to walk through that. You don't have to coach me. You don't have to train me. You don't have to ask me. And that's a lot about it. And then reinforce that I went through that door. So it is about motivation, but it's also about convenience. If that makes sense. If I can make it easy for you to do and you're capable of doing what I'm asking you to do, you can do that with very little motivation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I always need to know what's in it for me, right?
Yeah, and it's that whole behavior thing. On one axis, you got motivation, and the other is the capability to do it. I can be highly motivated, and if I have no awareness of my capabilities, like your example of, I don't have the money to do that. So I'm highly motivated, but I don't think I have the capacity or capability to do that. I'm not doing it. But if you can shift my capability, my perspective about that one just enough, then I'll start doing it. And that's that whole brain science. I see you talking about David Goldman. I got to sit at a table with him and some other gurus many, many years ago. You know, double ears open, mouth shut. I was so afraid they were going to ask me a question, but it's really Barbara Fredrickson, all the different people that come together, and just sitting here listening to them going, oh my gosh, don't ask me anything. Let me just absorb the knowledge in this room.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a great point too. You know, as you were sharing that, I was thinking about how the learning sciences, especially as a foundation, really inform our other the execution of some of our other professional skills. So the way that you think and understand and perceive things can change the way that we coach, the way that we deliver, the way that we design, the way that we manage knowledge. And all of that is based on that foundation. And as you were talking, Belinda, I was even just making the observation that that's how you're framing your conversation right now, is based on your understanding and knowledge of the learning sciences. So we're kind of circling back around to John's original question that, you know, about were you surprised that learning sciences was included here? It kind of proves the point of why research indicated that this is where it belonged.
Yep.
Any other final comments or thoughts on any of these on here? I saw a few people circle evaluating impact, and I don't know if anybody who's still on the line had that thought, but I know that this is a really big piece of the puzzle in the talent development world, and sometimes it is utilized, kind of used and abused a little bit, you know, but sometimes it's forgotten about. And so I feel like many practitioners are very polarized on this topic. They may put evaluation over the learning outcomes, or they may value evaluation more than some of the solutions that you would be hoping to develop. And other people may just say, evaluation is not really that important. So I wanted to toss that one out as a final bone before we close out with our little after party discussion here. Any thoughts on evaluating impact? Feel free, you can chat or talk.
My thought is we should be evaluating all the time. It's too important not to.
Exactly, and evaluation can happen in many different ways. A lot of times people think of evaluation as one particular way of evaluating, but there are many different ways to evaluate impact.
And it's not snarky, but it might come out a little bit snarky, but if we're not taking responsibility for evaluating impact, we are writing our own ticket out the door in some respects, because there's no way to prove the value without having data. And so even a well-crafted one question evaluation is better than not doing it at all, in my opinion. I could do a whole day.
If anybody needs a session on evaluating impact, just contact Dawn Mahoney. She is happy to work with your organization on that.
That sounds like a new ATD meeting.
Exactly. Well, I wanted to go ahead and show you this before we sign off for just a few of us that are here right now. Remember our calendar for the month of June. We have a number of things going on, and if you continue to be available at this time on Fridays, we are going to continue this series throughout the month. And we're also going to be posting a link for a game night on June 16th. I think it'll probably be posted today, so be on the lookout for that. And of course, as usual, if you just remember to keep up with your membership and consider being a part of the national organization as well, if you're not already. So we appreciate you guys, and we also want to make sure that you can get in touch with us if you need to. We are organized geographically and statewide. So geographically, you see the contact information on the screen, and we are all part of one big South Carolina ATD family. So we appreciate everyone's participation. Feel free to reach out to me, Jessica Cabrera, at president@atdmidlands.org if you have any questions, and we really appreciate you joining us today. If you haven't already, please connect with us on our social media platforms. We'd love to have you on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and tag us anytime you post anything interesting about learning and development so that we can get everybody involved in that conversation. Thank you so much for your participation, and we hope that you will join us again on Friday of next week.
Thank you so much.